So let's say you wanted to start budgeting because at the end of each month, you're left with almost no money in your bank account. And whilst you try really hard to save, it just seems impossible. How exactly can you break this cycle? Well, this is the ultimate guide to budgeting, the video that I wish I had when I first started to manage my own money. And to make this video as easy as possible to follow along, I'm going to be breaking this video down into 5 different steps. And the first step, what we're actually going to do is actually zoom out and forget about the technical side of budgeting altogether and just ask ourselves a simple question. What are our financial goals? Without goals, there is no motivation. Life without goals is like running a race without a finish line. You're just running around in circles with no end in sight. That's why it's so important to set yourself goals in all aspects of life, not just to do with your financials, but to do with your personal life, your relationship, and your career as well. Now let's take a look at 2 different scenarios. So in the first example, one day randomly you thought to yourself, I really should start budgeting. And so you start budgeting. In the second scenario, your goal is to start budgeting so that you can pay for all of your bills on time and you can begin saving for your house deposit for your future kids and family. One with a nice backyard where the dog can run around outside. Now, out of these 2 scenarios, which one do you think is going to yield better results? And by what I mean by that is, in which scenario are you going to be able to stick with budgeting in the long term? Now, if you guessed the second scenario, then you're right. In the first scenario, you're probably going to go to the App Store and kind of download a free budgeting app on your phone and then begin using it, hoping it's going to magically solve all of your problems. But after a few days and weeks, you stop budgeting because there's no motivation, no driving factor behind why you should be doing it. But in the second scenario, the one where you imagine yourself with a home and a wife and kids and a dog in your backyard, you had goals, you had ambitions. You had a reason as to why you wanted to budget in the first place, because you imagined a better future for yourself and you thought to yourself, it'd be really nice to have a few $100,000 to retire with, or even a few $1 million to retire with. So think about your goal, write it down on a piece of paper, write it down on your phone, on your computer, or on a notebook, and use that as the motivating factor to get to where you want to be in the future. And this brings us to step number 2, which is to know your income. If you have no idea how much money you're going to be bringing in each and every single month, then it's going to be impossible to know how much money you can actually spend. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, go to your bank account, go to your pay slips, and identify and calculate how much money you're bringing in every single month after tax, because this is going to be the foundation of your budget. And as you can see here on the screen, we have this budgeting template, which you can copy or use your own budgeting template. And I'll leave a link down in the description to the one that I'm showing here on the screen. And what you're going to want to do is, list out all of the income that you receive on any given month. Not only does it include your main job, but perhaps you also have a side hustle as well. So let's say for this example, you make $2,000 every single month from your main job. And you also make an additional $200 from your side hustle as well. Now you can customize this spreadsheet to, however you see fit. So if these income sources don't align to yours, just feel free to edit any of the boxes in orange. So for example, let's change bonus to clothes, because let's say, for example, you sold some of your old clothes on Facebook Marketplace and you wanted to capture that income as well. Now you'll notice that this column is titled Plan, meaning that this is what you're expecting to come in every single month in terms of income from these various different sources, because there is some variability in terms of how much income we could receive on any given month, especially if you're, working part-time or you're casual. You could be getting more shifts or you could be getting less shifts each and every single month. Now, if you work full-time on a salary, then most likely the income that you receive on any given month is going to be pretty fixed. But regardless, what you're going to want to do every single month after you receive an income is go into the transactions tab and then input those transactions. So moving on to step number 3, which is to know your expenses. And by far the easiest way to actually figure this out is to go through your bank statements, your credit card statements, and go through and look at all of the reoccurring expenses and categorize them into different categories. So for example, housing, right? This could be for your rent or your mortgage payments. And let's just say that's, $1,000 a month. It could be less, it could be more, but let's just take it at 1,000 for the time being. Then you'll have other common reoccurring expenses like your utilities for your gas and electricity bills. And let's say that's $200 per month. And then you have a gym membership, private healthcare insurance. Let's say that's $150 per month. And then with groceries, with how bad inflation is right now, let's add another $400 per month. And then restaurants, who doesn't like dining out and eating out at restaurants at night? Let's add another $300 per month. And then subscriptions, so things like Netflix, Spotify, YouTube Premium, anything like that that's reoccurring every single month, we're gonna wanna include that as well. And let's just say that's $50 per month. Okay, so I think you get the picture here, right? I could go on and keep adding across various different categories, but what you're gonna essentially wanna do is track each of your expenses and categorize them into different buckets. Now at the top section here, we can see that we have planned expenses of $2,100. This is essentially your starting budget based on what you typically spend on any given month. And then what you're gonna wanna do, either on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, is once again go into the transactions tab and then fill out all of your expenses as they come in. So once you've done that, at the top of the template here, it's gonna actually show you how much you actually spent against what you plan to spend each and every single month. And it's gonna do that for both of your expenses and also the income that you earn as well. So in this scenario, we actually spent $100 over what we actually planned to spend. So we spent $2,200 instead of $2,100. And we also earned $2,300 this month as well, which means we have $100 left over. And in terms of what we're gonna wanna do with that extra $100, we'll talk about that later in the video. But let's just say, for example, you're actually spending $2,300 per month, or worse yet, you spent $3,000 that month, meaning you're now $700 in the negative. And that's bad, right? Because now we're getting into debt. We're spending more money than we're actually earning. And there's really no magical formula that can just fix this for us. Financial success and getting ahead in life in general is really about making sacrifices. So what expenses can we actually cut out from our spend that's going to enable us to get ahead in life? Do we want to cut back on eating out? Do we want to cut back on our entertainment? These are not all necessary things that we need in order to survive. Perhaps look at doing other activities instead of going out to a bar. Perhaps you go out and go on a hike. Do things that are free or just don't cost as much money. Instead of going out and having a nice dinner party, why don't you invite your friends over and host a dinner party at your place? So these are all, hard choices and sacrifices that we need to make if we do really want to get ahead in life from a financial perspective. Now, another option if you don't want to cut your expenses is to actually increase your income. You can do this by searching for a higher paying job. You can do this by taking on a second job or starting a side hustle. Of these two things, right? So cutting your expenses and then also increasing your income, which one would I recommend? Well, I would recommend doing both. I think it's always important to be looking to increase your income in life and then also to ensure that you're not living above your means. Just because your income is increasing doesn't mean that your expenses should increase as well. You should always be looking to, look to decrease your expenses if at all possible. You should always be looking to, live below your means so you have money left over to actually put towards more productive things such as saving for a house deposit or investing into the stock market, anything that's going to set yourself up for future success. And moving on to the fourth step, and that is to use the 50-30-20 rule. So the 50-30-20 rule is a very simple budgeting strategy, and you can use this to allocate your actual spending habits. The way it works is that 50% of your income goes towards your needs, so things like housing, groceries, and utilities. 30% goes towards your wants, dining out, hobbies, Netflix, and then the final 20% goes towards saving, investing, and paying off high interest debts. Now, if we go back to our budgeting example, we can see that, already this is all out of whack. In terms of our needs, this is way over 50%. Because your needs need to remain at 50% or below based on this budgeting strategy, if you're constantly going over 50% from your needs, then you're going to have to be able to be okay with cutting out non-necessities from your budget. So things like dining out at restaurants, entertainment, you're going to have to be okay with cutting those things back to allow your budget to supplement your needs. Now, even after all of that, okay, so if your needs are still over 80%, then it's time to start putting a cap on your other expenses. Electricity is something that most of us have control over. If you're constantly leaving the lights on, if you're sleeping with the TV, or if you're using those non-energy efficient light bulbs in your house, these are all things that we have control of that are going to reduce our electricity bills. If you pay for water, then, once again, you have control over this. You can take shorter showers, perhaps just hand wash some of your dishes instead of always using the dishwasher. But the one thing you cannot do is to start dipping into that 20% allocated to investing, saving, and also paying down high interest debt. The reason why you can't get ahead in life, the reason why you feel like you're running around in a hamster wheel, not making any progress in life, is because you're not putting money aside to save and invest. And we've got to change that. And that brings us to the final step in terms of what you should be doing with your leftover money. So let's head back to the drawing board here. So imagine you have two jars, right? So the first jar is called your emergency fund. 5% of your income goes into this jar. Okay, so the purpose of an emergency fund is to actually be a cushion against your assets from any unexpected expenses and emergencies. And ideally, you're gonna wanna have at least 3 months worth of living expenses saved up. Okay, so that's jar number 1. Now, what about jar number 2? So 15% of your income needs to go into this jar, and it's going to be where you invest your money into stocks or ETFs. Now, if you have any high interest debts like credit cards and personal loans, then you're gonna want to direct that 15% to actually pay down that debt first. It wouldn't make sense to keep your credit card debt, which you have to pay upwards of 20% in interest, and put that money towards investing into the stock market, which on average provides 8 to 10% per year. The numbers don't stack up. Also, when you get to the point where you have your emergency fund set up, then you can also direct that additional 5% towards the 15%. So then you're going to end up putting towards at least 20% of your income towards saving or investing. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. If you've stuck around for this long, thank you so much. If you've learned something new, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content in the future similar to this. You guys have all been awesome. Have a lovely day. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.